Welcome to the Got Invention Show. I'm your host, Brian Freed, and today we have Alexis Mantione. She's from My Two Ladies Knitting. Hello, Alexis.
Hello, Brian. Nice to be here.
Thank you for joining us today. So tell us who you are and where you're from. Let's start off with that first.
Okay, sounds good. Um, my name is Alexis Mantione. I live in Long Island, such as yourself. Um, I'm actually from Queens, but I moved out here. And so my thing is knitting. That's my thing. And I do have quite a unique story, as you will hear, um,
Well,
about
why
my
don't you
first.
start off? Why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about your background, Alexis?
Okay, sure. So as I said, I come from Queens. Moved to Long Island, had a kid, got married, all of those things. Um, I do not have any business background whatsoever, other than we joke about this. And I don't know, Brian, I'm sure you're familiar with it, but I was a like superstar in junior achievement. Do you know junior achievement?
No,
No. Okay.
it
Well,
sounds very achieving.
no, seriously, it's a really big deal, but for some reason in New York now, it's not. But anyway, junior achievement was something where they teach high school kids how to be entrepreneurs. And you set up a company and you do all of these things. So that was my thing. I loved doing that. Nothing became of that. I went on to have all sorts of jobs, and then I was a legal office manager for about 20 years, which was very, very boring. And so the day then did come where it was time for retirement. And once retirement came, um, it did not in any way happen the way I think it would happen. Retirement did not shape up the way that I thought it would. Entrepreneurship flew in. And so, as you know, when you're an entrepreneur, it's not unusual to work a 60-hour week, right? But it's not work because you love it.
Well, it sounds like you had a hobby, and that was knitting. And you
Yes,
probably said, I have a lot of time on my hands and I have a cool hobby. And I've been doing something that makes my life a lot easier. And then the light bulb went off.
that is exactly what happened, Brian. Exactly. So, and also, I did knit, and I did go to a local knitting store, which they have, around the community. And of course, because I was working, I didn't get to go all that often. So once I retired, I basically lived there. I was there all the time. When you belong to a knitting group, it's a community. That's another thing that's so wonderful about knitting, and we call it fiber arts. It's the community feeling also.
Very
So I
nice.
was so happy to be part of that community.
That's
um
great.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
tell us what the issue was that you weren't
Okay.
happy with, or that was just frustrating to you, that made you come up with this invention that you're going to show us.
Yes, I absolutely will. So I think even non knitters will understand this. So when you knit, there's only two type of needles. First of all, that's a straight needle, which is just like a straight needle, and they have other another type of needle that's called a circular needle, where the needles are attached. So I was knitting, making, I had all this time. I was making this really gigantic king size bulky blanket, which I actually have right over here. I keep this as a memento. for all the shows I go to, and I don't finish it because I like to have it for good luck. So, how would I knit something like this so large with hundreds and hundreds of stitches? On straight needles, it wouldn't fit, right? And on a circular needle, what happens is it's circular. So these long pieces, doing it circular, it's all getting jumbled up. You can't see your pattern. And it's really not a pleasurable experience. And I was magnified because it was so big and so bulky. So that was what was happening. My hands were hurting. I couldn't knit more than a few rows at one time. It was just too difficult. I wasn't enjoying it. So that was not good. That was not what I had planned for my retirement. And I was there with the group of people and the owners, who happened to be sisters, elderly sisters. And I was complaining, and they would say, I will never forget this, Alexis, there's nothing you can do about this. This is the way it is. There is nothing else. And I just stopped. And like you said, the light bulb went off. And I said, no, I think I have an idea. So I went over, we have all kinds of tools there that you can buy, and knitting needles and whatnot. And I grabbed some tools, and I grabbed some like real tools, cutting tools and all of those things. And I actually made a working prototype right there on the spot that worked. And faces just dropped. It literally just did it. It didn't even look that ugly. I got to tell you the truth. It looked pretty good. So, what it looks like now, the real deal, is it's 2 needles. It's not a circular. It's 2 needles, okay? I'm just going to play with one right now. Mm-hmm. So you knit just like you're knitting with straight needles. The difference is that you have this long cord. So all of these stitches can go all the way down to the bottom, right? So that alleviates the problem of not being able to see your project. That alleviates the problem of being able to fit all of those stitches so easily. And the most important thing that it does, which is how I got the patent, because of this one little, sorry, I got a little tied up here, because of this one little toggle. So this little toggle, which is called a sliding toggle, which I know it looks like a toggle. That's really what it is. But I had just designed it. It's amazing how much design had to go into this little toggle, because it had to have the exact amount of pressure to be put on it that could hold a stitch, but yet you can easily move it. So what this does, I'm going to knit a little bit to show you the idea of what I'm talking about and how this works. So here I'm showing you that I'm just knitting a few stitches. This is nothing fancy or difficult.
You look like you've done this before.
I have done it, but since I invented them, I haven't had quite as much time. So you're knitting, and what happens is when you're knitting, stitches all just fall down to the bottom. And that's if you're on a circular needle, whatever type of needle. So they fall down to the bottom, Brian. And what would you think? When you're knitting, then you have to keep pulling these stitches that fall to the bottom. It's just gravity. And you have to just keep pulling them back up to the top. So you're spending so much extra time doing that, and extra repetitive motion on your hands. So I will show you. This is the little toggle that is the big invention that
Let's
just
see.
changes it all. So you take this toggle. It's hard to do while I'm holding this. You take this toggle with your fingertip, and all of those stitches you saw, it was all the way down to here. Look at where they are. They're up at the forefront of the needle now.
You're keeping them
So
in where your workplace is.
exactly. There's no more reaching down and pulling up. It's always here.
Hmm.
And that is just a huge benefit that I don't know, no one ever thought of it. We just never, I don't know. Lucky me. I
Well,
mean, so it really is a terrific invention. And again, you see, all of this, you would usually have to pull those stitches up. And if I had my blanket that I was working on, which I have next to me, that's heavy. That is very heavy to continually do that. So, no, it works with any size needle. You just take your little toggle, and there you go. You're
very
knitting.
nice.
Isn't that pretty cool?
Congratulations, Alexis. I haven't, I mean, I took home economics back in the day, and I know how to I know how to put my button back on when my button on my shirt falls off. Not exactly the correct pattern, but it definitely holds well. Maybe I put a little too much, but it holds there. But congratulations. I know that for sure that people who knit would definitely appreciate something like that, from what you showed,
Yeah.
and you're already proving that it's something that people need because you're selling them, and that's what I'd
Yeah.
love to go through with you
Okay.
is, okay, Alexis, so you were with those 2, uh, owners
Late.
of the knitting
Yes.
club or the store,
Yes.
and, the light bulb went off, as you said, and, what did you do first? Like, did you start doing something there, or did you run home and to see
Well,
if there's any items like this available?
um,
What was in your head at that
you
point?
know, what was in my head was I was just happy I was able to knit happily. I literally, with this prototype that I just threw together, transferred my blanket onto it, and it worked. And there were a bunch of other ladies there also. And it was a time they really didn't know what to say. It was
Wait,
just,
wait, but this was like, you went back there with
no,
this,
no, I
or
was
did you
still
do it
there.
at the you were still there?
Still there, still there. We were like a knitting family community. These ladies, which by the way, my two ladies, no ladies on me. It's those two ladies.
Oh, that's
They're the
nice.
two. I did a tribute to them.
Very nice.
So everybody asks, who's the other lady? And I say, well, I'm not even the lady. So that's where the name came from.
Understood.
Um,
What
yeah,
did you do though? Like with the pressure piece, with the toggle, like tell
yes.
us, like, at that moment when you did say, "You know what? I can make this easier." What did you
Mhm.
do?
What I did was I took circular needles. Is this what you mean? You want to actually know
Yeah.
how I
Yeah,
invented
like,
it? How what I
well,
did? Okay.
yeah.
I went
Yeah.
and I took
Interesting.
great. I went and I took two sets of circular needles. Okay, so the circular needles. This is a circular needle. So you have two connected to one string. Okay, to one cord.
Mhm.
So what I did was I went and I took two of these and I cut a needle off of each of them. So it left me with just a needle and a cord, and I threw out the other needle. Then I rolled up tissue paper and I wrapped it up with a rubber band and I put that on the end. So that was the stopper that would stop everything from falling off the
That was a
bottom.
instant prototype.
No, it was an instant prototype. Uh-huh. But then again, that the real invention is this. And I actually didn't know about this, but when you get a patent, you can also get something that's called a method, also a method of knitting. So I created a new method of knitting, and why is it a new method? Because you are doing it differently. It is a different way, and that was really key to this. So
Very
then what I
interesting.
did was I took, it is amazing as I'm talking about it, it is
Well,
yeah.
this is all about you, Alexis, so
Yeah,
it's
it's
very
all about
interesting.
me. I have to say, I'll pat myself on the back. I don't know. So then what I did was I took a clothespin. I don't even know if people know what a clothespin is anymore. It's a clothespin is what you used to hang wash outside on the line with, and it goes like this. So I put a clothespin. Again, I'm in a place with elderly ladies, and we're all hanging around, and they just happen to have clothespins there. So I took a clothespin, I put it on the cord, and there was my sliding stopper. I was knitting with it. I was
Very
using it.
nice.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's fantastic. So Alexis, tell us now, let's we understand how it works and how
Hmm.
you came up with the prototype and that, and you mentioned that you had a patent. So let's just quickly go through the steps that you took to get to where you are right now. So it sounds like you had a patent. So you found a patent attorney local, or
I
tell us
found a
about that experience.
store. I will say again, no business experience. I first I wasn't even thinking about getting a patent. But what was happening was everyone was telling me, my group, can you make this for me? Can you make this for me? I don't care how much it costs, just make it for me.
Hmm.
However, and then it was, you need to get a patent, Alexis. So I thought about it, blah, 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 blah. And I did a lot of reading before I even got a patent attorney, because
Okay.
I didn't even know what is intellectual
That's
property,
good. Right.
right?
So just like with knitting, you figured that out. So you
Yeah,
found a patent attorney. You
I
ended up
did.
going through the kind of the motion with them of what they needed to be
Yes,
able to get
yes,
it.
that's a process,
Hmm.
going through the things you need to do, and also explaining, even though it's such a simple, what appears to be a simple, you need to explain it so intently that the attorney needs to understand it, or the patent is not written properly. So we ran into a few little glitches there with it not being just right.
Great. So you
So,
have an issued patent now?
yes, I have my
Okay.
patent, trademark, all of that finally went nice and smoothly. Aside from, attorneys are not cheap, so you got to shell out the bucks for that, but it's the, what are you going to do? You have to do that.
Right. Well,
So,
that's good. And you did it based on a method. Now, after
yeah,
you worked with the patent attorney,
yes.
you realized because people kept asking you to make them for you,
Hmm.
or for them, asking you to
Yes,
make it for them,
yes,
and
yes.
you realized that you needed to commercialize this. So, what did you do at that point? Because you were making them by hand, or you're still making them by hand?
No, I was making them by hand. They looked a little bit prettier, but they still functioned very well. So, again, not knowing, I did not even knowing what to do. I just kept researching, and I went to Score, which I'm sure you know what Score is.
Mhm.
It's some where you get mentors and whatever. So I did that also to learn, some bit of information. And I remember them telling me, this is not an easy thing, because I had to go internationally. There, I could not get anybody in the United States to do this for me.
Mhm.
And I went around to all the, not all, but many of the larger knitting needle companies. Most of them were very helpful. Most people were very helpful on my whole journey. They were
Mhm.
happy to help, and that was another really pleasant thing. about it.
Very
So I
nice.
did wind up finding a generational family in India, um, that they were woodworking artisans, and I really fell into it. I have to say, I didn't realize at the time how difficult that it was to find sourcing like this. I wanted everything a certain way, handmade. Uh, you know, I wanted everything that I wanted in it since I was making it myself, right?
That's great.
So, so I did get what I wanted, beautiful, but it comes with problems. Um, a smaller family company cannot push out thousands of needles for you. They're literally there by hand doing these, because what that does is by doing them by hand, you get certain qualities that you do not get, from not from me. Whatever.
Understood.
Yeah,
Yep.
but
So, Alexis, so you ended up having them start to make them for you, and then
yeah,
they were shipping them here,
yeah,
and you obviously you QC'd them, quality controlled, check them to make sure they're to your specifications,
yes,
and you started to sell them. So tell us that where you are right now,
yes.
and then I'd like you to tell us where your future is and what My Two Ladies Knitting is about. That would be great.
Okay. So I am very happy to say that I did achieve what I thought I was going to achieve in this amount of time. Um, there were ups and downs and things you don't think of for sure. Yeah, you don't think of. Um, but you keep persevering, right? And now I forgot the question. What was the
Well,
question,
no,
Brian?
I wanted to ask you, so you have inventory,
Oh,
you got the
yeah,
inventory from
yes,
India, and you're
yeah,
starting to sell them now. So
yes.
tell us where you are right now, how
Okay.
that's going, and what My Two Ladies Knitting is about.
Got it. Sorry about that. So at first, I made a website. Again, you don't have a lot of money, or most people don't. I didn't have a lot of money. So you do the best you can, you know, to get it out there. That was it. You have to get it out there. So, put together a website. And at first, it was word of mouth, really. Um, onesie, twosie, threesie, foursies, not thousands of needles, right? And then people started recognizing the name, really recognizing the ladies, and my website was starting to sell. So then I guess I had chutzpah because I did not realize that this was, I just did whatever I felt like doing. Um, I contacted all the major needle makers, seeing if they would have any interest in maybe going in with me. I have this new product, it's patented, nobody else in the world can have this. I came close to having a couple of deals, but that went down the toilet, which is what happens, but you have to keep going and going. So then I got my first real break. Am I allowed to mention these names, by the
Sure,
way?
it's
Okay.
your absolutely.
I I got my first break, and I will never ever forget this. I got my first break to be on the Grommet.
Mhm.
And if you know, the Grommet is a platform that sells inventions.
Yep, they sell all different types of inventions. So you're in
Right.
catalogs and you're continuing to build up,
Yeah.
and at this point, where do you see My Two Ladies Knitting?
Okay.
Because you have many different products and
Yeah.
you're building this brand.
So that was my dream. I actually didn't even think I'd get as far as I did. Um, but I now have a full line of My Two Ladies products, crochet hooks, yarn bowls, different types of needles, yarn winders, many, many we call them luxury tools. And one of the reasons was I found that many places were not interested in just one where am I in one product. They kind of didn't want to take you on just having one product. And in my case, I felt it made sense to have one product with knitting. It made sense to have a whole line. So,
And the other products aren't necessarily inventions, but you built a line of
yes,
product around that you private labeled with My Two Ladies Knitting, and
yes,
here you are with your My Two Ladies Knitting empire. And sometimes like the niche that you're in,
yep,
it
that's
could be any
exactly
type of
it.
niche, but you built a brand around it and you're going strong. And what's the future hold for you?
So the future, I'm always looking for a licensing deal. That's what I'm always looking and hoping
At this
for.
point, you have a whole brand. I mean, but
Yes,
go
you're
ahead.
right.
Yep.
You're right. I have a whole brand. I'm still working by myself, with the exception of having like a bookkeeper and a not full time. That's helping me.
Mhm.
It's a lot. So I do hope to hook up with some company that it would be beneficial for both of us, to somebody that has a lot of money and a lot of pull can do a lot more with this invention than I
Well,
probably
I
could.
think and the audience probably hears and sees that you've done fantastic, and maybe there will be an opportunity for somebody to take what you've built and maybe build up more distribution than you have now, but it seems like
Exactly.
you're going strong. And really
Thank you.
congratulations on where you are and what you've done so far, and having an issued patent and building a brand and a website and driving traffic. You've really accomplished a lot. And I'm sure there's been lessons along the way that you
Yes.
really have experienced. And
Yes.
Alexis, there's many inventors out there, there's entrepreneurs, there's startups, there's people that are knitting that are probably going to be watching this on your website. Give us some words of wisdom. If we see something like this that we have a problem with and we want to come up with a solution, how can you help us to get past that kind of getting started step?
I think fear is the biggest that holds you back, is fear. And I can't say don't let fear get in the way, but try not to let fear get in the way, because if you don't try it and you don't try to go for it, you've already failed. So, what's the worst that could happen? You go for it, you try it, and good things can happen.
But just like you did your research and you
Yes.
you you figured things out, and you went to SCORE, which is score.org, which is a popular for volunteers that have business
Hmm.
experience to be able to help.
Yes.
And it
Yes.
seems like you just made some really good decisions along the way. And what you also proved was that even before you started with getting into things, you always did your research. And
Yep.
that's something that sounds to me like that's a lesson that you'd like to tell other people out there.
I don't see how you could do it any other way successfully without making major mistakes or wasting major time and I've had to go back and fix things that I did it wrong. Had to go back and fix it. That's what happens. So,
Well, that's the journey, and thank you for
mhm.
sharing your journey with us. And again, Alexis Mantione from my2ladiesknitting.com. You can go to her website, which you see on the screen, my2ladiesknitting.com. Alexis, thank you so much for sharing your journey, your story, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you so much, Brian, and whoever's watching, thank you for watching. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And if you'd like to be a guest on the Got Invention Show, you can simply go to gotinventionshow.com. Thank you very much. And just like Alexis, keep on inventing.